this administration is very pleased with the outcome of the election.
Yeah, I think, we gotta get to the subject of today. Shall we start with two introductions videos, of one of California and one of the Netherlands, to see what the state of the art is at this moment on this subject we're talking about?
Excellent. Let's start with the videos. Roll the tape, Ellen.
To preserve planet Earth, we need to change the energy and mobility system worldwide. The Dutch are accustomed at transforming big challenges into great opportunities. We share knowledge, encourage easy use, support entrepreneurship, and connect sciences. We are committed to zero-emission mobility. Transition starts with ambition. The Dutch ambition is to extend our leading position in the field of zero-emission transport further, to inspire and motivate others in taking the road to zero emission and to accelerate along it. As a result, the Netherlands has one of the densest charging networks in the world. And we're one of the leading players in electric transport. Not only in the rollout of passenger cars and electric buses, but also in charging infrastructure and the new development of new technologies and services. Many foreign-built charging poles have Dutch technology inside. We invented seamless charging services and open protocols and export them worldwide. Something to be proud of, we think. Dutch startups have global influence on new technology development, increasing efficiency and reducing costs. It's through the spirit of the next generation that we find new ways to grow. The key success factors are cooperation, knowledge development, and regional anchoring. A number of Dutch cities are working towards zero-emission zones to support the rollout of clean modes of transport. The introduction of renewable, sustainable city distribution will help to make our cities smarter and greener. We strongly believe in working together. That's why, amongst others, the Dutch government works via public-private partnerships. Together we can find the right solutions that make a sustainable difference. Join us on our journey to a zero-emission future.
For decades, California has remained at the forefront of clean energy leadership. This year, the state became the world's 5th largest economy, while continuing bold efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The state's policies have driven reductions across sectors and aim to lower emissions by 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. California has installed more renewable energy than any other state and generates more than 32% of its electricity from renewable sources. The state plans to reach 50% renewable energy by 2030. A groundbreaking requirement to be approved this year will also require solar panels on new homes beginning in 2020. The state's progressive energy efficiency standards for buildings and appliances are moving the market toward cleaner, more efficient technologies. These standards have already saved Californians more than $100 billion in utility bills. And landmark legislation signed by Governor Brown will double energy efficiency savings by 2030, further reducing energy demand and saving customers money. Transportation pollution is the state's largest source of greenhouse gases and smog-forming pollutants. In response, the state is shifting transportation systems to clean electricity and low-carbon fuels. Today, California is home to half of the zero-emission vehicles in the country and plans to have at least 5 million by 2030. Already, the state is home to a dozen companies manufacturing zero-emission cars, buses, and motorcycles. Each year, the state provides $150 million in grants to test and demonstrate innovative clean energy solutions, supporting a cleaner, more resilient energy system. These grants leverage private and federal investments, contributing to an innovation ecosystem across California and beyond. As California builds a thriving green economy, it is working to overcome barriers that limit access to clean technologies for low-income customers, ensuring that all residents benefit from a clean energy future. California is committed to working with cities, states, and nations around the world to face the unprecedented challenge of climate change, and together support a global clean energy future for everyone.
All right. Well, thank you, the Netherlands. Thank you, California, for these inspiring words. I think if we want to make that transition to a zero emission economy, we need to look at how to clean our transportation sector. And a very key element, like Ellen said, is to electrify it. And for that, we need charging infrastructure. And that is today's topic: how to sort of accelerate the deployment of it. For the most part, obviously it is about leadership. And I would like to introduce one of these leaders, and Ellen already introduced him as Mr. Electric, Maarten Linnekamp from the Amsterdam Metropolitan Region. So Maarten, please, if you can tune in.
Good morning. Thank you for the compliments. Thank you as well.
You're very, very welcome. So Maarten, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, we're of course in a strange situation in the city of Amsterdam. Normally the city is crowded with tourists, with a lot of people, but because of Corona, everybody's home, everything is silent, the cars are still. So it's a strange situation, Peter.
It's a strange situation, but I think just like in California, I hear that because of less travel, there's also less pollution. At least in the beginning, it was very measurable. Here in California, I think also in Amsterdam, hopefully people will make other choices about traveling and maybe take the bicycle more and leave the car at home.
The city was for the cyclists.
Yeah, exactly. So Maarten, so wonderful that you can be with us. And let me just jump right in the water with you. So you have helped set up the Amsterdam Metropolitan Region Electric, and this year you had an amazing procurement in which you were able to procure 20,000 new charging stations for the city of Amsterdam in the years to come, and you basically got them at €0. So how did you do that? Give us your secret sauce. Tell us a little bit more about it. How exciting!
Yeah. Because when we started in 2009, the price was quite high, so it costed around €7,000 for the charging pool. Can I have the first slide, please? So here where we started. So nobody knew anything about, really only a few people, about electric mobility. We didn't do a lot of research, but we thought, let's see what is possible, how it could be done, that we show to the people that you can drive electric, and that's why we choose to install charging poles in public space, that it could be visible, that people want to be part of it. So this is the first lady who was starting charging. In the beginning, electricity was for free, parking was free, so she was quite happy with that. But that was possible with only 5, maybe 100 electric cars and charging poles. But in the next scale, we want to order 1,000, and so we have less subsidies, but it starts growing. And we started in the city of Amsterdam, but we want to work, of course, with the region, with the profits for North Holland, of course, for instance. Yeah. And in 2012, we started a tender to organize a tender for the region with 18 municipalities. So that we have, can I have a slide, please? So we installed now at least 600 charging poles, and the tender you mentioned that we're talking about 20,000, and that's not even sufficient for the goals we're heading at, because in 2030 we want to have 2 million electric cars on the road, and then we have to have 40,000 charging poles. Can I have a slide, please?
So you're saying that 20,000 is not enough for the region. You need at least double, but you got the first half.
So we started, and then we have some issue, because you already told that it was for free for now, but when we started, we thought, well, if we need 80,000 charging points or 40,000 charging poles, and it will cost us €7,000 a pole, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what we did, the scale to organize a tender with 80 municipalities to have. At this time, we have around 200,000 electric cars on the road. So there is more business. The charge point operators, they earn money from selling electricity. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is the price of the charging pole. So the growth of number of cars, that everybody now realized there's nobody having second thoughts about the development of electric mobility. Everybody knows that it's there to stay. That's where the price come down. And the income of selling electricity, I also can show you on the next slide. So here you see the growth of how much kilowatt hours are provided. And you see the little dip at the end.
Yeah.
That's Corona crisis. So everybody worked and stayed at home, and now you see it's growing again.
Back up again, but maybe back up just the previous slide if we could, because this is for sure very interesting. For California. California has a great market for home charging. A lot of people can charge at home. There's great opportunities to charge at work, but public charging is still sort of like it's something that needs to grow, and particularly. This graph I find very interesting because of how you did what you did, you were able to drive down the costs from close to between 5,000 and 10,000 per charging location, all the way to sort of like zero.
Yeah.
And if you could sum up, like what are the three main drivers for this success?
Well, first of all, of course, at the end, that we all have to believe that electric mobility will have the future.
Yeah.
Then companies are willing to invest in it. So up till I think 2012, everybody was saying, well, maybe it's hydrogen or fossil fuels will be there for 30 years.
Yeah.
So that's one. You have nobody is hesitating now that electric mobility will. So there is business in it. You see the selling of electricity is growing. So big companies like Shell, Total. So the big tender of 20,000 charging poles, Total is delivering them because they think, well, that's the future, and that's important. That's one. The other thing is working together for cities, for municipalities, because if every municipality is ordering a charging pole a little bit different in the other cities, that it won't work. So
that's a very crucial point. This regional collaboration and what's the role of the state to enable this? Or how did it come about? Why would municipalities work together?
So the minister of was responsible for electric mobility. She's really enthusiastic what we did with the province of North Holland and the city of Amsterdam to make it also workable in the region. Because we must realize that small cities, municipalities, they don't have the money or the capacity, the knowledge about what they should do. So we need to help them to make it a success. And the government is quite enthusiastic about that.
And you did this at the regional level and not at the national level, but more the region where people live and work and go out, where the kids go to school, where they have fun. You organize it as a region. That's what you're saying is the second driver. What's the third driver? Because I think you were about to say three. I asked you for the three golden tips.
Yeah, maybe the last thing is that that you believe in it, that you want to stick out, take the risk, So at that time. The government was enthusiastic and gave us the support to see where we with the 10 charging poles or the 100 we started. Nobody knew that it will be a success. So the trust, that's important, to make it a success, and don't hesitate. So of course, you have to make research, but also at the same time start doing it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. That will be too late. Start today with action. So that will be the third thing, I think.
It's about regional leadership. It's about local leadership, about personal leadership. Don't wait, just say, start. convince others to join you in the procurement, because the larger the procurement is, like 20,000 charger locations is a lot easier to swallow, I think, for a party that wants to build these chargers than, let's say, 20 or 200. So 20,000 is the scale. So you were able to scale it in the region. And can you tell me just a little bit more? So are they all required to take these chargers, or is it on a common serve basis?
The municipalities, they decide what to do. So I can't enforce it. Nobody in the province of North Holland cannot enforce it. That's how we have that organized in the Netherlands. So you have to persuade people. So if I offer them a charger pool that is much cheaper than if they have to organize it by themselves, then they will join in. I have to explain to them that's some solution about climate change and a solution for air quality issues. And then if you can help those municipalities make it a success, then it works. Then it starts working.
And because, I know you started small and then it sort of grew. So now it's 80, you said 80 municipalities, right? That have put in the effort. That, again, has driven down the price. Martin, this is a fantastic story. One last question, and I'm sorry to rush you through this today, but how big is the team? I mean, 200 people, 300 people?
The team we're working on, we're 10 people, but we don't only, today we're talking about charging infrastructure. There's also support initiatives on cars and trucks and lorries. So for instance, the taxis on Schiphol Airport, they're all electric.
Yeah.
That's one of the projects we organized.
So basically, let me repeat it again for those who are listening in. We have a global audience, Martin. If this is not something you did with 100 people, you started out on your own, basically with a few people, and now the team has grown to 10. But you service 80 municipalities, and that I think covers about 2 million people. 20,000 chargers growing to 40,000. I think it's an amazing story. I think you can all be very proud of what you have achieved. I know you're not ready to settle down. You're not completely satisfied yet. Please keep us posted. And I assume if any question is here, in California for this region to learn from, you'll be available to them, I would imagine.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome, Martin. Thank you for joining us today. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Martin Linnekamp, who is at the forefront of regional collaboration and procurement at a larger scale, driving down cost. An amazing story, if you ask me. I have to say. So we wanted to know, since this procurement aspect and collaboration, public-private, is so important. We wanted to know from other experts in the world. So we asked the leading experts from Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, and California what they see happening in this field and how they are using all these opportunities. So, Ellen, can you start the video showing these amazing experts?
We started in 2009, and by then we placed 100 charging points in the city. There were hardly any electric cars, so this was a little bit like a chicken and egg problem. What comes first, the electric car or the charging infrastructure? And as a city, we said this is important, so we'll place 100 points to ensure that that people can actually drive an electric car. Now that sort of worked and it sort of didn't, because we placed it on strategic places, what we thought were strategic places, but not all of them turned out to be strategic places. So we've learned from that, and we turned our strategy into a demand-driven strategy. So which means that if you have an electric car in Amsterdam, you can come to the city and say, hey, I have an electric car. I would like a charging point near my house. And then we'll check if there already is a charging point there, which you can use or not. And if there isn't, we will place one for you. So that worked for a couple of years, but now for the past few years, we've seen that the growth in electric vehicles in Amsterdam is so fast that this is not enough, this demand-driven strategy. So now we have a combination of demand-driven, so you can still ask for a charging point near your house, but also data-driven, because we have the data on all the charging points in the cities.
You might know the street scooter, the four-wheeled electric vehicle, which the German Post Office now operates. We actually developed that back in 2010 in a public-private environment. So it came from the university, then we privatized it, we got public financing in, but we achieved that maximum goal. Again, the output was a vehicle that achieves low TCO for the end user, and which is functional to what it actually has to serve, right? And I think you can transport that idea to the charging infrastructure. So it's more about creating win-win situations.
California has had a lot of success working with our overseas partners in supporting the development of the zero emission vehicle market. Great example is, of course, the long relationship we've had with the Netherlands, including the COAST2COAST e-mobility program and the International ZEV Alliance. That's really helped to accelerate global adoption of ZEVs. I think it really does just boil down to the foreign direct investment approach that we take to support companies that are looking at expansion in California in this area, and then also really looking at opportunities for California exporters.
We are involved in charging infrastructure now for over a decade in the Netherlands and for, let's say, 5-6 years in other countries as well. Talking for the Netherlands, we have around 50,000 public charging points right now, and we've been involved somewhere in every charging point that you see in the Netherlands. So when we're driving somewhere, I see, oh, that's the background of this charging station, this is how it works. And we have supported, I guess, maybe 80% of the Dutch governments who have done a public tender for a procurement process for charging stations. We have supported them with building their tender documents, their strategies, their business cases, and so on.
Our model is a public-private partnership, so that the public, us, we set up the network, the website, the mobile app, the Facebook page, the customer service, procurement, advertisement, revenue management, maintenance, etc. And the private, so whether it be a supermarket chain or a hardware store chain, they pay for the charging stations.
So on the procurement side, we have a lot of investment from private industry. A lot of our real estate is owned by private parties, and so it's all about finding the real estate. We have the California Energy Commission does a rebate project, electric vehicle incentive project called Cali VIP that helps facilitate kind of a deep dive into specific regions in the state. We have utilities. We're doing procurement of our investor-owned utilities and publicly owned utilities to buy stations. We have Electrify America, which is a private industry, but also part of the Volkswagen settlement. And so they've gone out and really helped accelerate the market.
Here in Amsterdam, we want to be a playground for innovation. So we welcome any company that has a good idea.
You have to continuously work on it, yeah. So and communication is key in these public-private projects. I think identifying and communicating should be like the rationale of every PPP.
Collaboration between the public and private industries remains crucial to identifying funding gaps that governments and automakers, energy and infrastructure providers, and others can fill. So programs that we have in the U.S. like opportunity zones, new market tax credits, and community development financial institutions, those things can be used to boost the government's commitment to zero-emission vehicle market development with private capital. But really, strengthening the public-private partnership, it essentially comes down to two things. It's communication and engagement.
To strengthen it is quite important to set the same goals for public and private companies. So what we've seen in the past is that the public organization said, okay, we like to do something with innovation, for example, instead of, or as an add-on compared to the rollout of a charging network. And for a private company, they're doing huge investments to build a charging network. So they have to invest on forehand before they have any income or whatever. So they need a long run before they get their profits or their investments back. And in some projects, we see kind of separation between these goals, between public and private partners or parties. And it is quite important to set them with the same goals.
You know, in any partnership, it's always the same thing. There's no secret. So it has to be a win-win situation for both partners, public and private. So it has to bring benefits to both sides. In the case of the electric circuit, our public charging network, so we provide a full array of advantages to our private partners. So good hardware, good price, zero hassle.
Each sector has a strong role to play, right? We're trying to get to scale, and scale, I think, means that, we need to bring a lot more private investment in. We don't have enough public money to get where we need to go, and so it's really important that we find ways to build that confidence. And so, what we're looking at is, strategic financing. Can we help bridge the gap between, where you need grant funding to where it's completely private market focused? We're also doing a lot of work on permitting and interconnection, trying to eliminate or reduce soft costs associated with putting stations in. And so to bring the parties together, I think what we're trying to do is, facilitate that continuous information flow between, what the private sector is doing, the barriers that they're facing, and then what the public sector can bring to help pull those things together. There's a lot of work to do, but it's all about establishing confidence between those two parties.
I think we're going towards a system that combines more charging hubs outside of the city with smaller charging infrastructure inside of the city. And that will create all kinds of opportunities for companies, I think, and for us to work together with companies.
What you can see in successful projects is always that these soft costs have been addressed early on. Yeah, so it was always clear from the beginning, okay, the customer acquisition is going to be part of the private party, for example, because they already have the marketing materials and everything on site. It's not going to be part of what the public entity brings to the table, or vice versa. There can be different models.
I'd say that policy dialogues like this one, even virtually, they can help California learn best practices from those that are farther along in some procurement areas than we are. And that will hopefully help us as a state address potential challenges that can arise from large-scale procurement initiatives.
What we see is that a lot of public procurement process has different kind of scopes and conditions for the charging operators to join these kind of tenders. So working with standard documents and have a standardization of technical requirements, for example, or using open protocols, etc., is very helpful to lower transaction costs. So it will make it easier for parties to join. Second, is really important to think about the award criteria in a tender or in a procurement process. What we see is that a lot of times these award criteria are used as a kind of an add-on service. So we need to do something with communication or with the look and feel of a charging station, for example, or with smart charging, and that's always kind of an add-on and not in the core of the project. What is very helpful is to think about, okay, what do we want to achieve with this project and make a relation with the award criteria. That's even important to make it more effective, really make a separation between innovation at one hand and the rollout of charging infrastructure at the other hand. They're complete different tasks. So the rollout is going along with a lot of investments, and you really need to have a focus as a charge point operator on the rollout of new charging stations. It's a very difficult task. You have to do a lot of things in cooperation with the city, with a grid operator, with an energy provider, and so on. And innovation is really kind of a testing thing with a small scene of people, with a small scene of charging stations, and it's not fitting together in one project. So make a separation between the two of them.
How can we make it smarter and more effective? Well, I believe that the processes should be adapted to the value of the contracts. So it would certainly be more efficient if some of the rules could be more flexible. Let's say if the contract to be awarded is under a certain threshold.
In terms of really accelerating, there's a lot of stuff in the Dutch experience that we're excited to learn about, like maybe in the public right of way. Is there a way to help, to do that and learn from what's happening in Amsterdam, for example?
Well, thank you, Tyson. Thank you, Mark and Harm-Jan and Emily and Frans Lapont and obviously Judith for sharing these insights. And I think what's important to know is that there are similarities. There's also differences in their approach to public-private partnership, in their approach to procurement, and how they can see the next step. But nevertheless, I think it's very crucial that we see all of these examples of how to accelerate the deployment of charging infrastructure. So now that we've heard of these best practices, I was wondering, is anybody monitoring how successful these public-private partnerships are? And for that, actually, I had to go look in California because Patrick Toppin, who is with the governor's office, he has designed a model to look into, how successful are these public or how these public implementations of infrastructure with private funding, how successful are they? So Patrick, welcome with us today. You are basically the one that actually measures all these successes that the previous speakers are speaking about. So
you're far too kind, Peter.
So how are you? How is Sacramento?
It's good. It was raining earlier and now it's sunny, and that's how I want every day to be, clean air, bright skies. And, I'm excited to talk about private investment and how to accelerate that today with you.
Excellent. Excellent. So, so can you tell me a little bit about the model that you've developed and what you
Absolutely,
see?
Yeah. If we can get the slides up. Yeah, so I think, when I was working for the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, one of the things I think we really were curious about is, who's actually investing in public EV charging. And so, here's sort of a list of some of the really big players that we have in California. We have California Energy Commission. We have some of our utilities, both publicly owned and investor owned. We have a lot of private industries and government settlements that also help accelerate that. So if we can go to the next slide. We really found is that there's a lot of players who are being involved. Here's a chart, I think, over the overall amount of capital expenditures thus far as of June 2020, when this model was last updated, into the public charging market. And while obviously, the numbers here aren't going to be exact down to the cent as they're listed, I think, we've gotten some really positive stakeholder feedback that they're in the right area, that we've got our costs all correct. And we're really excited about that. And I think one of the big takeaways we saw is that, one, there's a lot of different players here. I think one of the big things that jumped out to myself and to Tyson, who I was working under when I was there, is that Tesla earns their market share. 40% of the amount of money that has been put into charging comes from Tesla. But we also know that those are chargers that operate at a loss. There is much a way to sell more cars as they are to sort of accelerate electrification. So what we really wanted to center in on is this little purple slide right here. Other private, actually, we'll get to that in a second, but we can go to the next slide. I think it's also important to know that a snapshot doesn't really tell the whole story here. Really what we've seen that over time, and since the beginning of the last decade, about 2010, we've seen investment go from virtually nothing, dominated by government spending and a little bit of Tesla in the early years, to gradually becoming sort of a whole team effort. We've gone, to over $500 million in capital. And I think that's a really, really exciting thing. One of the other things I think you notice on here is that that red line is the amount of actual charging ports. And I think one of the things we've noticed is that spending has dramatically increased, right? We're starting to see sort of the beginning of the hockey stick of an exponential curve. And the number of chargers isn't following that as much. And I think that really reflects this increasing reliance on DC fast charging, right? These high kilowatt, really, really expensive chargers. You pay more money and it might be a more efficient charger, but you only get, one connector for that. So we can go to the last slide here before I wrap it up and we can enter our conversation, Peter, is that non-Tesla private investment. So, these are the things that are built in your shopping malls and your grocery stores. These public chargers is really starting to accelerate. I think that's really what we're excited about. The first 5 years, not a whole lot happened, and then in 2015 it really starts to take off. And if you'll forgive sort of the decline, because that's a subset of, that's just a quirk of the model and the way that it reports utility investment. I think we're on a really, really, really positive path here, and I think we've seen a lot of the efforts and a lot of the lessons that we've learned at the state of California sort of be internalized, and we can make our processes more efficient, more effective, and just better for everyone.
Yeah, so this is very exciting, and maybe we can leave this slide up. So what you're seeing in your data is really this exponential growth that as a state you want to see happen, right? In order to meet the target, the governor just announced the executive order to have only zero emission vehicle sales by 2035. So in order to meet that, we need the charging infrastructure. So we need to see also the private investment. And based on the research that you've done, this is now a study encompassing 10 years, you actually see this exponential growth. The question is obviously, will it meet the demands? Does your model also have predictive capabilities, or is that something you would look to see, being part of future modeling?
I think it's something that's definitely something we want to include in future modeling efforts. I think right now the real purpose of a tool like this is to be a diagnostic. It's a way for us to evaluate whether or not our policies at the state of California at all levels are working, and how they're working for our private businesses, how they're working for our utilities, how they're working for the sort of non-governmental programs that we have sort of signed contracts with to build starting. So, we talk about the NRG settlement in the early 2010s that put in chargers, sort of settle an energy scandal. The Volkswagen scandal obviously is going to result in a lot of things. It's a way for us to really sort of measure that. And I think that is where these types of models are really, really important.
Yeah, so I'm also going to ask you sort of like like a more political kind of question. I asked also Martin, so what would he advise California to do, and to accelerate infrastructure based on his experiences? He did share a little bit about that. So if if you're looking at your model, what would you advise? So we will be speaking with two representatives from the state of California in the province of North Holland fairly soon. And what would you sort of advise them to do, to take the next level in terms of promoting private investment?
I mean, I think we've already seen a lot of these of what I would advise already taken into account. I think we've seen the way that the Energy Commission used to hand out funding for chargers towards a more rebate-based project. I think that's a really, really positive settlement. I think we've talked about it a fair amount at GoBiz, and I know you've been a part of those conversations, but obviously permitting is a big problem. We can't, you need to reduce those frictional costs wherever you can. Especially, this is going to be a huge lift that we need everybody on. We need every stakeholder, every business, we need consumers aligned on that. And that is going to require keeping costs as low as possible. And so reducing those frictional costs, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah. Well, I think
so. Yeah, my advice is to just learn the lessons that you can.
Yeah, so learn the lessons that you can, and this is certainly one of them. This this public-private partnership, but also the room to experiment and to learn from what works in other instances. And I think what's very crucial is that this model gives us information on a regular basis so that we can at least monitor the situation. And as governments always say, we cannot spend our way out of this. We need the private industry. And if we can sort of monitor and see where our policies inspire them to do this, that would be very helpful, and to also engage with them. Patrick, your model, I think, is truly amazing. I hope actually your model gets exported to the Netherlands, because as far as I understand, there's not such a model. So who knows, maybe one day soon you'll be doing this presentation in the Netherlands and see what they can learn from your model. Thank you so much for being with us here today, and take care. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Peter.
All right. So now that we've heard from Patrick, and we've heard from Martin, and we've heard from 6 different experts from across the globe, the question then becomes, what do those who are in charge of policies, what do they do with it, and what can they sort of learn from these developments, and how's it going to shape up their policy agenda? So for that, I'd like to invite Patty Monahan and Edward Stichter to join us in this conversation. And welcome, Patty. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing very well. And Edward, good evening in the Netherlands. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you.
Well, so good to see you. You had to wait quite a while. It's because your moderator is not very good at keeping the time, I guess. But this is an exciting discussion. I've learned already quite a lot. I hope you were able to listen in. And I have a few questions for you, because in the end, the buck stops with you. It's up to you to use all this knowledge to translate into policies that actually create this much needed deployment of charging infrastructure. So, but before I do this, I wanted to ask you just for the viewer also just a few more general questions. So, Edward, you're responsible for energy and climate, and sort of what are your ambitions? Listening to what our experts have to say, what are your political ambitions to realize in your tenure?
Yeah, thank you. Well, Peter, our administration is very ambitious when it comes to combat climate change, and we put a lot of effort on energy transition. And the coming years, we will invest more than 200 million euros in various programs to create a sustainable future, and innovation and public-private cooperation are key in this process.
Excellent. So basically, your agenda says you're going to invest massive sums to to make this transition possible. That's what I hear you say.
Yes, that's correct.
That's wonderful. And electrification of transport is part of that. Now, if I may make the bridge to you, Patty, you've seen this growth in California over the many years, and sort of what is what is your take on this success story in California?
Well, I would say California has been committed to zero emission transportation for a long time. We passed the first zero emission vehicle policy 30 years ago in 1990. And we have, and it's driven because of our terrible air quality. So I would say, what I've been most excited about, though, is over the last 10 years, how rapidly the price of batteries has dropped globally. And we're seeing, price parity with conventional vehicles in the next 5 years, which is just amazing. And I think, we're on the cusp of the same kind of transition that we saw in the energy system, where coal and natural gas and other fossil fuels have been replaced by solar and wind, which are now cheaper. And I think we're going to see the same thing in the transportation system.
Well, I think that's a very positive. It is a very positive development, and I think you're being supported, both of you, by very recent decisions. The Netherlands have decided to go all zero-emission vehicle sales by 2030. The governor just announced his executive order 2035, and for those of you who missed it, just this morning, I hope you can read it. The Zero Emission Transportation Association got its life, and some big players from industry, among Tesla and EVBox. EVBox obviously being a player from the Netherlands, and Tesla from California. They are committing to make this transition by 2030. So this is a massive task for the both of you to meet these challenges. What do you see as the most important challenges to get to either 2030 or 2035? And Patty, can I start with you? What do you see as the major challenge here?
Yeah, I would characterize them as 3 major challenges. I call them the 3 C's: cost, convenience, and consumer awareness. So, as I said, on the cost side, we're making a lot of progress, but I think we'll need vehicle incentives for a while, and especially for lower income consumers to be able to make that transition. On the convenience side, we need a convenient charging and refueling, ZEB refueling infrastructure, which we're making progress on, but we have a lot more work to do. And especially in California, we're not just electrifying passenger vehicles, we're also electrifying trucks, we're electrifying off-road equipment. So this is going to be a major transition in terms of making sure that it's convenient to refuel these vehicles. And on the consumer awareness side, I mean, we're finding that a lot of consumers really just don't even know what an electric vehicle is. So we have a group called the Lowe's that is helping build consumer awareness of these vehicles. But I think we have a lot of work to do on that front as well.
Yeah, so you see the 3 C's as the challenges. That adds a 4 C for the challenge. But no, I think you're right. I've been here in California for the last 12 years, and I do agree those are some of the challenges we have to meet. Edward, in your position as Vice Governor or Regional Minister for Energy, what do you see as your main challenges to achieve these very ambitious goals?
Yeah, we have the same goals. I think we have the similar challenges as California told us. And I also see 3 focus points, the holy 3 again. First of all, we need to create a policy that provides the right parameters for the charge. And I think secondly, we need to improve our electricity infrastructure and our charging infrastructure as soon as possible. It must be quite soon now. And third of all, we need to focus on assisting the second-hand market in transition to zero-emission sales only. It's a second-hand market. That's our 3 focus points for now.
That's a very interesting aspect, because also here in California, we're also debating, how to do this, how to make sure that those who cannot afford to buy a new electric vehicle, who be looking at a used vehicle, how to sort of stimulate that market. I don't know, Patty, you want to say something about that? Because this is something also on the radar of the governor, right? To have equity.
Yeah, this is really at the forefront of everything the governor is doing to accelerate zero-emission vehicle penetration. We need to make sure that this is a transition that benefits everybody, and especially disadvantaged communities. These communities are often burdened by excessive amounts of air pollution. And especially this transition, I would say, in the heavy-duty space, where we're transitioning heavy-duty vehicles towards zero-emission vehicles, that's something that benefits all communities. And so in California, we're really trying to think through, one, how do we accelerate this transition from dirty diesel to clean zero-emission transport and ensure that disadvantaged communities benefit? That's number one. And number two, as you've talked about, is how do we ensure that this is a transition that works for lower income consumers that often live in apartment buildings where there's not convenient charging for them. That's something that my agency, the Energy Commission, is working hard to expand charging options for people living in apartment buildings. And so it's not just like making sure that there are incentives for the used car market, but also making sure that there's convenient refueling. I would argue that the latter is actually the bigger challenge.
Yeah, I think so too. Being here now for a while, I think that's something where, I think we can improve on, and we can maybe learn a few from what cities like Amsterdam, where they started out with public charging because no one has a driveway in Amsterdam. So this is wonderful. Now, the flip side of the secondhand market, Edward, is also to be able to have clean public transportation. Patty already said something about heavy duty, right? Trucks and vans. But also public transportation. So transit is very important. What's the province going to do, and how do you see this? Zero-emission buses?
Yeah, for example, well, the reduction of our carbon footprint are the ambitions of our whole country. Our national ambition is to sell zero-emission vehicles only by 2030. So the main contribution to the mobility sector to reduction of our carbon footprint will take place after 2030 of that. And the Netherlands are frontrunner of the electrification of public transport. In Holland, we aim to drive only with electric buses by 2027, and there are already regions where do so already. our main challenge is charging these electric buses. The latest models have a battery radius of 400 kilometers, and they take 4 or 5 hours to charge the battery, and that's too long. So that's our main experience for now.
Yeah, so you are, Patty, that public transit is a very important key part of mobility in the Netherlands, and so the aim for zero emission buses, I think, is a very important one. But you're also seeing that the charging infrastructure, the range, that's a challenge that you'll be working on. But I think it's a very aggressive target to aim for this. In the coming years, but very exciting at the same time. So let me switch to something completely different. So I didn't know this, and I've been here for a while, but the number one export product, Patty, of California right now is electric cars. So it's not the walnuts or the almonds or even software. No, it's electric cars. So what's the secret sauce? Because like 12 years ago, there were none. And now suddenly it's your number one export product. Tell us the secret sauce of California.
Well, I would just correct you slightly, Peter. It's vehicles, not just cars. Most of them are cars, and I got to say, one company, Tesla, is is a major reason why that's true. But it's not just Tesla, and there's 34 ZEV-related manufacturers in California, manufacturing everything from buses to scooters to batteries to charging technologies, and this is a growing industry. So the reason why California is at the heart of what I like to call the three revolutions, quoting Dan Sperling from the Institute for Transportation Studies at UC Davis, this intersection of electrification, mobility as a service, and automation. I mean, all the major companies that work in this space, not all, but many of them are here in California. And I think it's this combination of, we have this fertile regulatory policies. We have a lot of incentives around zero emission transportation. And we have this sort of tech-friendly workforce that embraces these technologies. So this combination, I think, is making California basically the new Michigan when it comes to electric vehicle manufacturing, automation, and mobility as a service.
I think that's very exciting, and you're so right. It's this combination, and it's not only Tesla; it is much larger than that. Companies that have also signed up to this new initiative, like Lucid Motors, Zero Motors, which is a electric bicycle company, which actually has the European headquarters in the province of North Holland. So they're all contributing to this massive change and this economic opportunity. So we sort of have to come to the end of this discussion. But I wanted to zoom in on. So you've heard these experts, right? And they spoke about the importance of procurement, the importance of public-private partnership. What do you take away, Patty, from this discussion? What would you like? How are you going to move forward in this?
Well, we have a big charge ahead of us in terms of implementing the governor's executive order, and it will take all hands on deck. I mean, we need a complete transformation in the next 10 to 20 years, and of passenger vehicles, off-road equipment, buses, long-haul trucks, and I think actually it's going to take all technology. So, we've talked a lot about battery electric technology, but there's also fuel cell electric technology, which I think will be particularly important in the medium and heavy duty space. So, I think we need much deeper collaborations internationally on, and especially, you all are the global lead, but it's not just you. And I think we need to work in deep collaboration with other countries. Now we have a US government that is all in on, addressing the problem of climate change and accelerating electric transportation. So we have a federal partner, not just California standing alone.
So I think a wonderful answer, and thank you so much, Edward. Would you like to contribute? And what are your takeaways from today's presentations on public-private partnership and being smart in seeing this market grow?
Yeah, I think it's very valuable that we are able to share the knowledge with the state of California. I heard of a lot of things were very interesting to our country, our approach. And I think we have the knowledge. We can help you with the infrastructure, for example. So I think we need it to change the world. We have the knowledge to change the world with each other. And I think the most leading states and a land with a lot of approach of this kind can help each other with that approach. And we find each other now, and we find each other to the next months. And I think you have the right government to make steps forward now.
Well, that's wonderful. I think that as you are trying to make this change happen, I think it's important to realize that you're not alone. Like what Patty is saying, there's many different areas in the world where things are happening, where we can learn from one another. And I think that that's also true for the province. They look at what's happening in California, and they want to learn from you, and they also want to learn from others. So I hopefully this webinar is a first step in the right direction for to accomplish your policy goals and to seek further collaboration. I think this collaboration between the province and the Energy Commission has been there since 2014. I think you'll find each other on these common goals for sure. And through the program, through Coast to Coast, we will for sure support that effort in any way possible. So let me say thank you for your contribution and for your willingness to take this to the next level. I think that's very important. The world needs you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Edward.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to already to the conclusion of this program. I think we've heard from amazing speakers, panelists, and those who are in charge to execute these policies. I think they're all looking, to go and take it to the next level. We've seen the first emergence of vehicles, of infrastructure. We've seen the first very successful procurement exercises, but there's still so much to learn now and moving towards the future. I think that that this webinar is one step. There's many more steps needed. I'm quite sure that that this is also something that that the Vice Governor and the Commissioner were agreeing upon to find comfort in collaboration with each other. I want to say thank you for tuning in today. And before I leave, I want to say thank you for both the Astro Labs and Alan Heap, who made this again possible to have a wonderful webinar. And also, let's not forget Kim, who supports the Vice Governor, and Ben Dialba, who supports the Commissioner, who have been making this possible in the past 2 months to set up this webinar for you. Hopefully you liked it. Please tune in. For now, I say thank you and see you again. Bye.